first reading, book of Sirach, talks about free will. If you choose, you can keep the commandments, they will save you. It says, God has set before us fire and water. To whichever you choose, stretch forth your hand. Before us are life and death, good and evil. Whichever you choose shall be given us. Okay, and then in the gospel, we say that Jesus raises the bar. It says, you heard the Old Testament commandment, but what I say to you is, and he intensifies the moral law. He heightens God's law for us. Not only raises the bar, though, he gives us the pole to vault over the bar. He gives us the sacraments as the means to reach that higher level. Often the world would deny free will. Sometimes in legal defense cases, there was a case where a fellow committed a crime and he blamed it on having too much sugar in his blood. They called it the Twinkie defense. He had eaten too many Twinkies. Another one had too much coffee. He says, caffeine made me do it. Okay. Other people talk about a gay gene. Okay. Well, we say heredity can predispose us towards certain sins, maybe alcoholism and things like that, but it cannot take away my free will. There was a Lutheran theologian that was arrested by the Nazis, and he was brought into a prison camp and the gates were locked behind him. Then he was brought into one of the buildings, and again, the door was locked behind him. He was led down a long corridor and locked in a cell. He put his hand into his pocket, pulled out a Bible, and said, "Now I am free. Now I am free." And that makes that distinction between physical freedom and moral freedom. Physical freedom is the freedom of the body from constraint, but moral freedom is the freedom of the soul from sin. Like in this country, we're called the land of the free, yet we've never been more enslaved to sin. There was a book called The Slavery of Permissiveness, that paradox that permissiveness really enslaves us rather than sets us free. Socrates, 400 years before Christ, said the worst form of slavery is vice. Okay? So we would say sin is the worst form of slavery because it enslaves our wills. The lie of the 21st century is that truth is the enemy of freedom. People think that the church is the enemy of freedom because it wants to teach truth. They think the magisterium is the Gestapo, trying to take away my freedom. Okay. Well, maybe we think of it in terms of a train. They say, when is a train most free? And the answer is, a train is most free when it's on its tracks. A train off its tracks is not free. It's a train wreck. When is the will most free? The will is most free when it's on the track of truth. The will is meant to be directed by the intellect, and the object of the intellect is truth. The intellect is illumined by truth. One moral theologian, Monsignor William Smith, says, freedom divorced from truth is an unguided missile. Okay, you don't know where it's going to end up. It can do a lot of damage. Freedom divorced from truth is dangerous. St. Augustine's definition of holiness is freedom wedded to truth. Okay? Freedom wedded to truth is St. Augustine's definition of holiness. When we wed our wills to anything less than truth, it becomes an addiction. Okay? It becomes a slavery. The saints are the most free because they were free to become all that God intended them to be. They stayed on that track of truth, and could become all God intended for them to be. The Blessed Virgin Mary is the most free of all the saints. So that idea of using our freedom in the service of truth, like G.K. Chesterton says, that we should thank God for beer and Burgundy by not drinking too much of them. Okay? So we show our gratitude to God by using our freedom to obey His will. Okay? We show our gratitude for our freedom by putting it in the service of truth. Before Mass, before the Gospel, we make that cross on our forehead, our lips, and our heart. And the prayer is that we might know the truth, that our minds might know the truth, that our lips might speak the truth, and that our hearts might love the truth, live the truth, practice the truth. Like those who know the truth well are called theologians. Those who speak the truth are called prophets. Those who live the truth are the saints. And so our prayer today is that freedom directed by truth puts us on the path of holiness. Okay? And as Jesus reveals that path more fully to us, part of the Sermon on the Mount, that we might put our wills in the service of that truth.